morning, traders. I'm Emily Bonney, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Monday, June 16th. We start a new week with a focus on geopolitical tensions, trade war developments, and an eye on the political landscape here on U.S. soil. On Friday, negative sentiment met negativity in the markets. All three major indices closed in the red. The Dow sank 769 points, or more than 1 3/4%. The S&P 500 shed 68 points, or 1.13%. The Nasdaq gave up 255 points, or 1.3%. Bill, let's get into a new week and Monday's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, yes. Good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. We're up, 0.65%, in the green. That's that's very positive. I mean, this is turning out to be a rebound Monday. I mean, the tensions in the Middle East remain elevated, but honestly, Israel has really demonstrated its air superiority, and they're continuing to focus on their attacks to disable Iran's nuclear program, and they're having a lot of success. What else we got going on? We got the G7 meeting that's underway. Trump's going to be in attendance. Focus is going to be on trade talks and, of course, the Middle East. There's also a host of central bank meetings in the week ahead. You got announcements coming out from the BOJ, the FOMC, and the Bank of England over the next few days. And the key economic report for today is really going to be that Empire State Manufacturing Index. And on the earnings front, Lanier, ticker LEN, they're going to be releasing earnings after the bell today. Looking at stocks over in Europe, I mean, European markets are displaying some momentum this morning. You got the DAX up 100 points, or 0.43%. You got the FTSE up 38 points, or 0.44%. You got the CAC up 67 points at 0.88%. The CAC, you're seeing gains in financials and luxury goods. Oil stocks are moving higher. That's helping that London exchange. Turn our attention over to Asia, and Asia also saw gains overnight. Got the Nikkei up 1.26%, or 477 points. Remember, they got that Bank of Japan meeting. That's tomorrow morning. That could, in the yen weakened, so that was good for equities in Tokyo. In Hong Kong, the market was up 168. That's 7/10 of 1%. You saw gains in financials and property stocks. And in China was up, 0.35%. Retail sales came in, very strong at 6.4%. Expectations were 5%, so that's a big jump. But industrial production came in slightly weaker, like a 1/10 of 1% weaker, but okay. But those retail sales are very positive over in China. And then we're turning our attention over to oil, because oil is the key indicator. They were higher last night and this morning, but now we're giving up some of those gains. You get WTI at $72.05 a barrel. You get Brent at $73.35 a barrel. And, the market remains well supplied. And there's the pending hikes, production hikes being planned by OPEC. I mean, that's keeping oil in check this morning. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update, Emily.
Bill, I appreciate that you started out with the words Rebound Monday. That's a good way to start the week and dive in here. You did also point to at least one economic report and one earnings report worth watching, even though we're not heavy on those details for the day. Important to note. So we will start with earnings section, but what is going on there?
Lanier, ticker LEN, Larry Edward Nancy, they're coming out after the bell today. Their EPS is $1.97, and their expected move is 7.27% when they release. There were no earnings last night and nothing really this morning, but looking ahead, I mean, really, after the bell, Lanier, that's the key one to be watching, Emily.
And speaking of keeping focus on at least one key piece of information when it comes to economic reports, there's at least one that is worth noting today. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of the day's economic events?
8:30 a.m. Eastern time, we get the Empire State Manufacturing data that's coming out. I mean, it's not going to be really a significant one. I mean, estimates are pointing for a decrease of negative 5.90%. So I'm not really too worried about it. Friday, we had that consumer sentiment data that came out, which actually showed an uptick in sentiment, but it was at its annual low for like 6 months and going lower. So I wasn't surprised that we got a turnaround. But that's really all we have on the economic front today, Emily, is the Empire State Manufacturing Index.
And with economic reports and earnings, even though there's only a couple of pieces of information to be following today, there's one area that there's always plenty of data, news, and information today, and that's the other market moving headlines that you're following with your Newsware. You set up alerts for things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls. You're looking at your stocks grouped together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
Doing a quick data check. Listen, I got 26 Dow stocks higher, 2 unchanged, 2 lower. That's really positive walking in today. And then I'm looking at my FANG stocks, they're all showing gains. So, we look like we're going to have a good opening today. I mean, you look at Apple, they could face some new charges, in the EU over App Store rules is kind of a rumor that's out there. On Google, the Department of Justice is planning planning to review Google's planned purchase of Wiz for $32 billion. Some news on Tesla, about, if the U.S. waives higher car tariffs, the EU will lower its import tariffs on U.S. vehicles and recognize certain American product standards in the future. I don't know. We'll see. It's very vague, and it's very subjective. We'll have to see if anything comes out of that. In terms of like Dow Jones 30 stocks, Microsoft, EU cloud data is going to be stored locally and only going to be accessible to the local EU staff. I mean, that kind of helps Microsoft in its efforts to expand business in the EU. Boeing, I mean, listen, the stock's up, about 0.5% this morning, but the data is a little sparse on that Air India crash. But there's some questions as to why the landing gear was down after takeoff, and the flaps may have been in the wrong position. I mean, this kind of looks like pilot error. We'll have to wait and see. Remember, this is a very safe plane, first crash ever for it. So it looks like it could be pilot error, which would really be a boom to the shares in the weeks ahead if this turns out to be pilot error. And news on Amazon. Amazon and Roku announced a new integration. That's positive for both stocks. We're talking guidance news. MGM, Michael Bet MGM raises their full year 2025 revenue to at least 2.6 billion. Whereas in the estimate was 2.4 to 2.5 billion. So that's a nice uptick. In terms of shareholders meetings, nothing today. Etsy, ETSY, they're having a shareholders meeting tomorrow. Penn Entertainment, they're also having a shareholders meeting tomorrow morning. In terms of buyback news, this came out Friday after the close. JCI, Johnson Controls, John Charlie India, they announced a $9 billion increase to their share repurchasing program. That's big. And that's what I have for in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that Newsware delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. It is now that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what do you have for us to start this week?
Going with Nike, ticker NKE, Nancy Kilo Edward. I mean, that strong retail sales data out of China should help the stock today. You look at the call volume from Friday, 60,103 versus put volume of 49,576, and a real negative day. Open interest 998K versus 760K, still positive. Brokers are a little mixed on the stock, but I do think that if I can get into the stock in the 60-50 range, 60-25, 60-50, it sure turned out to be a winner. So that's my pick of the day. NKE, Nancy Kilo Edward, Nike, Emily.
We will follow Nike with you today, Bill. And coming up, we will do a recap on Friday's pick of the day before we sign off. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Boeing did RAAF demonstrate MQ-28 teaming with EA-7A Wedgwood. In the first of its kind demonstration, the Royal Australian Air Force has successfully conducted a mission against airborne target using 2 in-flight MQ-28 Ghost Bat aircrafts. Interesting. Kind of read more into that. CPA, Charlie Paul Apple, Copa Holdings reports May traffic up 7.5%. Mobile stocks, T-Mobile, Verizon, Trump Mobile launched a new bold wireless service for Americans. H&R Block announced customer service operations collaboration with NICE Systems, NICE, Regeneron, REGN. They got a PDUFA date later this week. Victoria's Secrets, Barrington Capital Group has built a stake in Victoria's Secrets. They're seeking board overhaul. HOME, Henry Oscar, Michael Edward, At Home Group is going into Chapter 11 proceedings. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we dive into another week of trading, let's do that check-in on Friday's pick of the day, which was Boeing. Now, we did just hear you mention Boeing during that rundown of breaking news alerts, and there is that Paris Air Show going on this week, as you mentioned throughout the week last week. And you did give us that note about, the continuing investigation with the Air India crash, and, questions remain about pilot error. And as you said, depending on what they find there, it could really find out that, if it's not on Boeing, that it could be good for the stock. But speaking of a little bit of a run in the stock on Friday, you thought the weakness was a little bit overdone, that it would be weak, you'd be able to get in, and that it would move higher. Bill, how did your call work out?
I mean, listen, the numbers worked out. I mean, based on my entry price, you look at the stock, it opened up at $200.69, and then it fell down to $195.28. Now, I had a $199 entry price, so a little bit in the middle there, but still a little higher than, considering the fact it fell down to $195.28. But then it ran to $202.23. There's your 1%. Closed at 232, and look at the stock this morning, it's trading 201.31. So, that 199 entry price was key there. But the stock was a winner on Friday, Emily.
A winner on Friday and worth continuing to watch. And we will check in with you about today's Nike pick of the day. Watch that one along with you as well. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.